Kwabena Ansah joins us. And Kwabena Ansah is the head of communities and strategy. I think plural, there's more than one strategies, Kwabena, am I right? Strategies, plural, with the LOTE Agency. And I'm guessing at a gig like this, LOTE may stand for languages other than English. I may be totally wrong. He's part of consortium. All will be revealed about that. But Kwabena, I also want to thank you or acknowledge the rather provocative title for your presentation, Why We Need You. I like that. That got my attention. So Kwabena, over to you, sir. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Brett, and thank you so much for your engaging presentation. I think it's important that we have someone like you, moderating these things. So I appreciate that. And hi, everybody. And I want to say thanks for having me here. Yes, as Brett mentioned, it is provocative. Why we need you, and I think why we need you, especially. As part of a consortium which ICON Agency heads up, followed by the LOTE Agency, Willangali, which is for our First Nations, and Able Australia, which is a disability service for adults and community support for seniors. So the title of my presentation is about the program that the consortium is doing for the Department of Health. It's about access to translating and interpreting services for culturally and linguistically diverse people. So with no further ado, I'll go straight into it. So obviously, as part of the consortium, as I mentioned, Willangali, our project partner, has provided some insights just about acknowledgement of country. And one of the key things that they put forward is it gave us this amazing quote from Auntie Maureen Watson, and it said, "You cannot walk anywhere in Australia without stepping on land where an Aboriginal foot has already been." And I think that's really important. So I acknowledge that I'm hosting this online meeting from the lands of the Gadigal of the Aurora clans, who are the traditional custodians of this place we now call Sydney. I also acknowledge the traditional custodians of the various lands in which you all work today and the Aboriginal and Torres Strait Islander people participating in this meeting. So as a consortium, we pay respect to those elders, both past and present. So today, the context of my presentation, the project that we're doing for the Department of Health, I'll talk a bit about the background, the audience and channels in which the communication strategy is working towards, and the different types of stakeholders, and finish up with the implementation tactics, including the community tactics across all three project partners. So the background. So connecting senior Australians in aged care services, access to translating and interpreting services for culturally and linguistically diverse people, is focused on enhancing the ability of senior Australians to access information, make informed decisions, and exercise choice through the timely and targeted provisions of interpreting and translating services, content and tools in their preferred language. We heard from Andrew and Sanal just in relation to how important TIS is, and the project that we're endeavouring to do is ensure that aged care providers, both home care and residential aged care, are essentially using the services of TIS to really, help communicate with the diverse audience. So it is a very important project that we are a part of. So where it started, I guess, the consortium has been working together to create a comprehensive communication and engagement strategy. And so that's been developed to drive awareness, uptake, and usage of existing TIS national interpreting services. This is fundamental to our project. And essentially, the driving of that awareness is where all our strategy is focused on, to help, as I mentioned before, to help aged care providers to really use that service even more. So what are we doing now? We are providing aged care peak bodies and providers with a new service. So that will produce digital assets. So right now, if you're an aged care provider or home care provider, you can now go on a website and you can request collateral translated into your recipient's preferred language. And I guess this is, we want you to promote the service across your organization. We need you to ensure that this service is being utilized and getting that information to your consumer base, not consumer base, but residents in their preferred language. It's about supporting diversity in the aged care sector. I guess the big part of the website is that it's publicly available, accessible, and we want you to promote that across your network in the industry as a whole. So what is currently being requested? And as you can see, these are just some examples of what is being requested. And so we've got some digitally translated, fact sheets here that, an actual staff member can actually take to one of the aged care residents and say, have a read of this, or to a family member. It is quite anything that you want, we can do it for you. So taking it back a bit, in terms of the insights that we have learned previously about the use of tiers and as part of the project, we have heard there is low uptake of current translating and interpreting services across the aged care sector. And that's been through our conversations with various peaks and various individuals and also the Department of Health. And that's why this project is really important. And again, we need your help to spread the word that the website is publicly available, where providers can actually get their translated materials to their residents in a timely fashion. So we've also noted in that access to information about available services is difficult to navigate. We've also had insights here where senior people and their family friends or informed caregivers should be considered a primary audience for the range of communication activities across the element. So this point here talks about our communication strategy and just what we need to do in order to ensure that everyone hears about this program. Finally, community engagement is key. So as a consortium, we're very conscious about doing things like this presentation here to make sure that community and communities so broad that communities are hearing about this service and are utilizing it. So the audiences and channels. So we've identified, I guess, the translation services. So we've got some key audiences here around aged care providers, senior Australians, aged care peaks and stakeholders across that. And it's our job as a consortium to ensure that we communicate effectively across those audiences. So stakeholders. So the stakeholders, we've identified key stakeholders and groups. So again, we've indicated that, and as Andrew and the team mentioned before at Tiers PICAX, in our cultural advisory group, CAG, we speak to them on a regular basis, understanding some of the key issues within the sector to help us with our communication strategy and the overall project. FECA, Federation of Ethnic Community Council of Australia, key peaks, deaf, blind and Auslan community, Aboriginal and Torres Strait Islander providers and networks, and government departments and agencies. These are all the key stakeholders that we are working with in order to make sure that the program that we're delivering is fit for purpose. And part of that engagement has allowed us to do things like this, but also most recently the team had a booth at the Ansah conference, and that was such a success, where we talked about the program, talked about the consortium, again encouraging providers to use the service so that they can really communicate with their aged care community there. In terms of ensuring that when we are speaking to stakeholders, we are looping back, and this is a really key thing that that we're doing. And when I mean looping back, we're ensuring that we're getting the information that we want from them, but we're also looping back to them what we're actually doing. And so with that, we've heard from PICAC and both CAG that there's a lack of Auslan material being noted, and I guess material suggested for the actual engagement and the communication plan being around videos, easy to read messages, icons, or pictorial images really do help people who have who consume information differently. And I think that's really important going forward, and ensuring that providers are very much aware of that. And again, the service that we provide, if they're providing us with material that is audio or visual, we can do the translation for that. So I guess also as well, the feedback that we've heard is use public cross-cutting channels. So again, SBS, TV and radio, and communicate with home care or residential aged cares that can use interpreting services free of charge. So again, TIS is free, and that is what we're trying to get across as well. Use the service that we're providing, but also aged care providers to use TIS going forward. So our stakeholder engagement objectives. So here we've got just giving you guys a bit of a high-level idea as to how we want to engage the various stakeholders. So we want to promote, we want to encourage, we want to ensure, I guess, we want to promote the new translation service and website of aged care providers. We want to encourage uptake and continued use of the new translation service. And, certainly we want to promote and, to ensure that everyone, regardless of the location you're in, knows about this program. So we're obviously building a lot of stakeholder kits, so some fact sheets, some FAQs, some digital creative content to help with that, and we're utilizing the Department of Health's network to better engage the broader stakeholder list. So the implementation tactics. So here, just giving you a bit of an idea as to, I guess, where we're envisaging some of our community engagement tactics, including some stakeholder kits and some flyers and posters of previous campaigns. But this is kind of where we're going. And I guess more broadly here, want to just talk about the overall engagement tactics. Now, again, this is high level, so very much wanting to give you guys a bit of a snapshot as to the tactics, the channels, the audiences that we'll be looking across all three of both CALD, Aboriginal, Torres Strait Islander, and Auslan engagement. So I guess here for the Auslan deaf and blind community, we'll be looking at a community roadshow. So where we'll partner with key peaks and community outreach groups, as there's a high degree of messaging and channels specific with that audience. And so similarly with the CALD and Aboriginal and Torres Strait Islander communities, we'll be looking at stakeholder kits. Fundamentally, this program is a multi-stream strategy. So looking at the communication plan just very much looks at the primary audience, supporting intermediary and secondary audiences, and also influencers. So who is going to help influence getting this message out that our service is available, and aged care providers should be using TIS to really, engage with their residents. So what can you do to help? As Brett mentioned, we do need your help. We need your help to get the word out. This is a call to action to ensure that communities do hear about this. And again, it is a free service. So you can jump on this website. I know the team's going to pop it on the discussion room, on the discussion forum. And what you can do is pass this on to managers, senior managers, anyone within the aged care provider sector, and say, well, we have these groups of people that we want to communicate this important information to. How do we do it? Well, jump on that and essentially put a request through, and we'll be able to deliver that for you. We really want to ensure that the community get the right information. So with that, I will leave the presentation. So Brett. Thank you, Brett.
And thank you. I'm here. Forgive me, Kwabena. I was backstage, so to speak, talking about your presentation.
I love it. I love it.
And here you are, coming in early. Heaven forbid. What a team player you are, sir.
I am. Look, I mean, I do recognise, and very much we wanted to really talk about the program, but certainly, the big, as you mentioned, the big call to action is, get on the website and really, utilise the opportunity to get as much information as possible translated across the communities. Yeah.
Kwabena, I have a question, and by the way, anyone, questions, comments, live Q&A, get in early, please. But my question to lead off with is, it's a skeptical and cynical one as always. There are a lot of digital resources out there. Are you comfortable that we're not overly dependent or leaning upon or putting our hope in digital assets where perhaps we could be going with other tactics?
Yeah, look, I mean, right now, so this is a multi-pronged campaign. So it's very much, there will be different approaches associated with this. But I guess aged care providers do have a lot of complex information that they really do need to get to the recipients within who they work with within the aged care sector. And unfortunately for them, it is they haven't in the past known where to go. And so the program in itself is very much promoting the services of TIRS and promoting the utilization of the experts in the field to translate information that's culturally appropriate for community members.
Because I think you touched on something. I find there are a lot of fantastic resources out there in every field of the non-profit world, but to get that right person aware of those online resources, or that person to tell their colleague that, hey, you've got to go to this website because there's some fantastic resources. That seems to me a very granular sort of activity. It might, heaven forbid, use good old-fashioned phone calls or someone to hit the hustings, so to speak.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think, the experts, especially in culturally and linguistically diverse communities, you could have a very, an English word that you think has one meaning, and you and I might understand it, but it might be completely different for someone from an Arabic background or from a Macedonian background. I mean, and that's why we have a free service for Multicultural Australia. I really like this project simply because in 2008 I started working for the Department of Immigration, and I was using TIRS for the first time, helping to speak with clients, and I was like, oh wow, it's such a underutilized service. So to be on a project coming full circle to actually help providers utilize it more and really know that there are experts behind there. I'm really enjoying the project.
You struck on something there too. No matter how well known a service such as TIS might be to certain people, other people who need it just as much have no clue. And if you don't know, you don't know. And it's a churning workforce under a lot of pressure. Questions from the floor. Geraldine Flynn wants to know, what ideas do you have for people who cannot read or write in their own language or read or write in English?
Yeah, fantastic. Great question. And I guess that's, that's where we've got PICAC and CAG providing us feedback around, audio. So, audio assets, using our translators to help with the translating that in voice. So we definitely have, and at LOTE, we're very conscious of that there are community members, especially from the new and emerging communities, who having written information isn't their natural form of communication. So we've got to create assets that will help them understand, and a lot of that could be through audio content. And that's why radio is so powerful across communities, because it does allow people who aren't necessarily who aren't reading or writing day in, day out in their own language to actually understand what is being communicated.
And forgive me, Kwabena, if you mentioned this, but I'm a big believer in these projects need to be quite long term, and often they can start with a bang, funding dies, and they sit on a shelf, so to speak, gathering dust. Do you know about the future and longevity of this?
Yeah, certainly this is a fully costed program from the Department of Health. So it is a long-term campaign for this. So we're very excited as a consortium to be a part of it, and we recognise it is very much we need to saturate the market and let people know, let providers know that this is important. This is a service that they can utilize instead of using in-house, I guess, cultural and linguistically staff to help with translating. Just use the service.
You've got to become the Clive Palmer of translation and interpretive services. Repeat, add, repeat, add, repeat. I want you wrapping around my newspapers. I want you on every ad. I want you every time I go to bloody YouTube.
Well, Brett, that's what we've heard. That's actually what we've heard from PICAC members, that we need to saturate the market, and that is very much what I think will really get the message home to people.
I often do pop quizzes when I've got an audience. I'm not going to do it here digitally, but there's an organisation I've worked with for many years called ourcommunity.com.au. They do conferences and events, and they have more free resources than any other organisation has created for the non-profit and community sector, about fundraising, about governance, about finding volunteers, selecting the. Sometimes I might talk to 300 people, and to me, of course, they are absolutely bread and butter. To many people, they've never heard of them. I've got a comment here. A Bhutanese client told me today that they did not know about TIS or how to use it. We will arrange a how-to session for them and maybe a how-to sheet. I mean, you've just got to keep trying. Also, you're getting a request. What is the website that we need to go to again?
Yeah, so the team, I guess, will pop it there, but essentially it is diversityagedcare.health.gov.au. So DIVERSITY agedcare.health.gov.au. So
excellent. That is a wonderful resource. And you seem to have found yourself in the right sort of role.
Yeah, love doing this kind of stuff. From our perspective and from, I guess, the whole consortium, and it's very much about ensuring that the community and both the providers are well aware of this, and it's our intent to really drive home the program's availability and accessibility no matter where you are, and ensure that providers are really putting this at the forefront of their engagement with their diverse group of aged care recipients.
Josephine wants to know, she's looked at the address diversityagedcare.health.gov.au. And she asks, is it correct that you have to request resources?
Yeah, so fundamentally, you can essentially request what you would like to be developed. So you can provide us with a fact sheet and request away what you would like to be translated or done. So yeah, put a request in. Our team is ready to go for this. So yeah,
Wow.
pop in a request and they'll be in touch.
So you can't guarantee, of course, every request will be met, but they are considered and they are
No,
likely to be
every
taken
request. Yeah, look, I
up.
mean,
Whoa, every
fundamentally,
request?
yeah, fundamentally, look, I mean, we're very much looking to ensure that, again, providers are utilizing this service. So where it be audio being translated, being in terms of fact sheets. So yeah, we're very much looking at a range.
Time is tight, but Iverpeen wants to know, does this project go beyond aged care to other services?
No, so it's just aged care. So aged care providers and home care services. So yeah, targeted across that.
All right. So once again, it's up to those other peaks to say, we want something like they've got for aged care, but for disability, but for community services, but for something else.
Yeah, absolutely. And they can, I guess, go out there and, say, this is a great service. Can we replicate it?
Absolutely. Diversity, agedcare.health.gov.au.
I like that you're repeating it, Brett. I like that you're repeating it. Thank you so much.
I'm a true professional. And it's 16 degrees and cloudy over Melbourne right now. It's 13 past 2. Kwabena, thank you so much for your presentation.
No, I appreciate that. Thank you all.
More importantly, for your work that you're doing on the project. It's fantastic.
Thanks so much.
Ansah, Head of Communities and Strategies with LOTE Agency, part of that consortium. Thank you so much.